The galaxy was vast, filled with countless stars and countless worlds, but not all stars shone brightly. Some planets whispered of shadows creeping closer with every passing day. Unknown to most, a silent cry for help traveled through the Darkhan, SOS from a dying world, in the bustling capital of the Sindar system. Commander Lyra sat in the control room staring at the flickering screen. The message was faint, but clear, an ancient distress call from the Outer Rim. It was not a normal SOS. It carried fear, desperation, and a warning. "No one has answered this signal in decades," Lyra said, her voice low but steady. "If it's true, it means something terrible is coming." Her crew exchanged worried glances. The galaxy was no stranger to war, but this was different. The message came from a forgotten sector, known only as the Deathworld Zone, where few dared to venture far beyond the Sindar system. The Deathworlders lived on a harsh planet covered with savage jungles, poisonous swamps, and deadly predators. Their skin was tough, their minds sharper, and their bodies stronger than almost any other race in the galaxy. To many, they were monsters, wild and uncontrollable. But the Deathworlders had a secret. They had survived the impossible. And when the SOS reached them, they understood what it meant. In the great hall of the Deathworlder capital, Commander Sloan stood tall. The message was simple but urgent. "They call for help," she growled, "and we will answer." Back on the Sindar capital, debates raged. The council feared what would happen if the Deathworlders took this mission alone. But others argued no one else could face what was coming. "The Deathworlders are our best hope," Lyra said. "If they fail, the entire galaxy falls." The decision was made. The Deathworlders would lead the response. As the Deathworlder fleet prepared to leave, whispers spread among the stars. Some feared these warriors would bring destruction, not salvation. Others hoped against hope that the monsters would be the galaxy's saviors. Among the crew, tension grew. What was the enemy? Why was this SOS so old yet still active? The journey to the Outer Rim was long and quiet. The Deathworlders spoke little, their faces hard as stone. Sloan walked the decks, feeling the weight of the mission. "This is not just war," she told her officers. "This is survival." Suddenly, their sensors picked up a dark shape lurking beyond the edge of known space. A massive fleet, silent and deadly. The enemy revealed themselves. A swarm of shadowy ships, alien in design and deadly in intent. They had destroyed whole systems, leaving nothing but ruin. The Deathworlders moved fast. Their ships surged forward like beasts hunting prey. The silent SOS had been a warning end. Now the battle for the galaxy had begun. Back on the Sindar capital, Lyra watched the battle unfold through the live feed. She clenched her fists. "They begged for help," she whispered. "To no one expected monsters to answer." The first clash was brutal. Explosions lit up the dark void. Deathworlders fought with savage skill, using their planet's harsh lessons to outmatch the enemy. But the enemy was relentless. Every victory brought a new challenge. As the battle raged, the true threat behind the enemy became clear: a weapon of unimaginable power, capable of wiping out entire star systems. The galaxy held its breath. "Commander," Sloan stared at the weapon signature on her screen. "We must stop it, or everything dies." The Deathworlders steeled themselves for the fight ahead. They were monsters, yes, but they were the last hope. The silent SOS was no longer silent. It had awakened the deadliest force the galaxy had ever seen, and the war had only just begun. The Deathworlder fleet cut through the darkness of space like shadows born from nightmare. Their ships were enormous and intimidating, covered in armor that looked almost alive, pulsating with a strange, dark energy. Wherever they went, planets and space stations fell silent in their wake, not out of fear alone. Her eyes scanning the stars ahead. This mission was unlike any before. The SOS signal had come from the edge of the galaxy, a place so remote that many believed it was abandoned, lost to time. But now it was clear something was very wrong. Behind the Vindicator, dozens of smaller warships followed, each crewed by warriors hardened by a planet that had never been kind. The Deathworlders were monsters to many. They came from a world where only the strongest survived. But today, they were the galaxy's only chance. As the fleet approached the coordinates, sensors picked up signs of destruction: a shattered asteroid field, burning space debris, and scattered shipwrecks floating. In silence, the enemy had been here, and they had left a trail of death. Sloane's voice cut through the quiet. Prepare for immediate engagement. We don't know what's waiting. On the bridge, officers exchanged tense looks. The unknown enemy had already destroyed others. The Deathworlders knew this was more than a battle. It was a war for survival. Suddenly, the first enemy ships appeared on the radar. They moved swiftly and silently, like predators hunting their prey. Their designs were strange, organic, and mechanical, fused together in terrifying ways. The Deathworlders' weapons hummed to life. Sloane gave the order. Attack. Explosions erupted in the void. Laser blasts and missile trails lit the darkness. The Deathworlders fought with brutal efficiency. They were relentless, attacking with precision honed from years of survival. On their savage homeworld, despite their fierceness, the enemy was cunning. They used strange technology that warped space and time, making them almost impossible to hit. The battle grew fierce and deadly. Meanwhile, on the planet below, alien refugees watched the sky with hope and fear. They had begged for help for years, sending signals into the darkness. And now the monsters had come. Are they really here to save us? Whispered Tali, a young alien scientist. Or to destroy what's left? Her companion, a battle-hardened veteran named Jox, nodded grimly. They fight like beasts, but maybe they're the only ones who can stop the nightmare. Back in space, the battle raged on. The enemy began using new weapons, clouds of dark energy that dissolved ships in moments. The Deathworlders adapted quickly, their warriors fighting harder and pushing deeper into enemy lines. But casualties mounted. Sloane watched the destruction with a heavy heart. We didn't come here to lose, she said. We came here to win. Her voice was fierce but steady, inspiring her crew to keep fighting against impossible odds. The first clash ended with a narrow victory for the Deathworlders. The cost was high. Many ships were lost, and the enemy showed no sign of stopping. The galaxy's fate hung in the balance. As the fleet regrouped, a chilling message came through from enemy forces. It was a warning, a promise of total annihilation if the Deathworlders did not retreat. Sloane's eyes narrowed. They think we will run. They are wrong. With grim determination, the Deathworlders prepared for the battles ahead. They knew the enemy was powerful, but they also knew their own strength, the power of monsters who had survived the deadliest. Deathworlder fleet cut through the darkness of space like shadows born from nightmare. Their ships were enormous and intimidating, covered in armor that looked almost alive, pulsating with a strange, dark energy. Wherever they went, planets and space stations fell silent in their wake, not out of fear alone, but because few dared. To challenge them, Commander Sloane stood at the helm of the flagship Vindicator, her eyes scanning the stars ahead. This mission was unlike any before. The SOS signal had come from the edge of the galaxy, a place so remote that many believed it was abandoned, lost to time. But now it was clear something was very wrong. Behind the Vindicator, dozens of smaller warships followed, each crewed by warriors hardened by a planet that had never been kind. They came from a world where only the strongest survived, but today they were the galaxy's only chance. As the fleet approached the coordinates, sensors picked up signs of destruction: a shattered asteroid field, burning space debris, and scattered shipwrecks floating in silence. The enemy had been here, and they had left a trail of death. Sloane's voice cut through the quiet. Prepare for immediate engagement. We don't know what's waiting. On the bridge, officers exchanged tense looks. The unknown enemy had already destroyed others. The Deathworlders knew this was more than a battle. It was a war for survival. Suddenly, the first enemy ships appeared on the radar. They moved swiftly and silently, like predators hunting their prey. Their designs were strange, organic, and mechanical, fused together in terrifying ways. The Deathworlders' weapons hummed to life. Sloane gave the order. Attack. Explosions erupted in the void. Laser blasts and missile trails lit the darkness. The Deathworlders fought with brutal efficiency. They were relentless, attacking with precision honed from years of survival. On their savage homeworld, despite their fierceness, the enemy was cunning. They used strange technology that warped space and time, making them almost impossible to hit. The battle grew fierce and deadly. Meanwhile, on the planet below, alien refugees watched the sky with hope and fear. They had begged for help for years, sending signals into the darkness. And now the monsters had come. "Are they really here to save us?" whispered Tali, a young alien scientist. "Or to destroy what's left?" Her companion, a battle-hardened veteran named Jox, nodded grimly. "They fight like beasts, but maybe they're the only ones who can stop the Nightmaw." The Deathworlder fleet held its position near the ruined system, battered but unbroken. Their ships glowed faintly under the cold light of distant stars, repairs underway as the crew prepared for the next assault. Commander Sloan stood on the bridge of the Vindicator, her gaze fixed on the stars beyond. The enemy was not just powerful, they were cunning, and their next move was unpredictable. Across the void, the enemy commanders gathered in their dark command ship, a swirling mass of energy and metal. Their leader, a tall figure cloaked in shadows, watched the Deathworlders with cold eyes. "They are strong but reckless," the leader whispered, voice echoing with menace. "Let them come. We will crush them." Back on the Vindicator sensors, picked up an unusual energy reading. Something big was approaching. The crew tensed as the shadows on the screen grew into a massive shape, a colossal war machine. Unlike anything the Deathworlders had seen before, Sloane's voice cut through the tension. "All hands battle stations. This is no ordinary fight." The giant enemy warship unleashed a wave of destruction. Its weapons tore through space like storms, striking the Deathworlders' fleet with overwhelming force. Ships exploded in brilliant bursts of light. Some caught completely off guard, but the Deathworlders held fast. Their warriors were used to harsh battles on their home planet. They fought back with savage fury, boarding enemy ships and turning the tide in close combat. Amid the chaos, Lieutenant Cora led a boarding team into the enemy's war machine. Her heart pounded as they entered the alien corridors, dark and twisting like a living nightmare. Every corner hid danger. "We move fast," she whispered. "Find the core and shut it down." Deeper inside, Cora's team faced traps and hostile aliens. The tension grew as they narrowly escaped deadly encounters. The war machine was more than a ship. It was a fortress filled with secrets. Meanwhile, outside, the fleet battled desperately to protect the boarding party. Explosions shook the void, and the line between victory and defeat blurred. Back on the Vindicator, Commander Sloan received troubling news. Enemy was activating a weapon of unimaginable power, something that could destroy entire star systems. "In moments, if that weapon fires," she said grimly, "the galaxy will be lost." Cora's team finally reached the core. It pulsed with dark energy, alive and dangerous. With seconds to spare, they planted explosives and fled through the collapsing corridors as the war machine began to break apart. The fleet watched in awe as the massive enemy ship exploded, sending a shockwave across the battlefield. But victory was bittersweet. The enemy still had many ships, and their weapon was only partially disabled. The Deathworlders had won a battle, but the war was far from over. Commander Sloan looked at her crew. "We fight not just to survive, but to protect every corner of the galaxy." As the Deathworlders prepared to face the enemy's next strike, a new question hung in the air. What was the true purpose of the enemy's destruction? And what would happen when the final battle came? The shadows of the enemy grew darker. The galaxy held its breath. The battle's dust had barely settled when the Deathworlder fleet detected a new danger lurking in the darkness. Commander Sloan stood silently on the bridge of the Vindicator, her eyes narrowing as the sensors revealed an invisible threat creeping closer. The enemy was not just brute force, they had a secret weapon, hidden deep within the void. The strange readings puzzled the crew. "Commander, there's something out there," said Lieutenant Kira, her voice tense. "We can't see it, but it's getting closer. It's like a ghost in space. Sloane's mind raced. The enemy had been clever enough to hide this weapon. Waiting for the perfect moment to strike, prepare all defenses, we can't afford to be caught off guard. Meanwhile, on a nearby planet devastated by the war, survivors huddled together. Tali, the alien scientist, studied the strange signals coming from the enemy's hidden weapon. "This is worse than we thought," she said, fear creeping into her voice. "It's not just a weapon. It's a weapon that can erase entire systems. Erase life itself." Ojox, the veteran, gripped his weapon tightly. "Then we have no choice." "We need to find it before it finds us." Back in space, the Deathworlders moved cautiously, scanning every corner of the galaxy. Suddenly, a massive explosion rocked the fleet. The invisible weapon had struck, hitting a key cruiser and tearing it apart. The shockwave threw the Vindicator off course, alarms blaring. The enemy had revealed itself, a giant ship cloaked in advanced technology, unseen until it attacked. Sloane's voice rang out. "This is it. The fight we feared. Everyone brace for battle." The fleet scrambled to respond. Enemy's cloaked ship fired again, its deadly beams cutting through shields like paper. Deathworlder ships exploded in brilliant flashes, the crews fighting desperately to hold the line. The battle was unlike any before. The enemy used stealth and power, striking quickly and vanishing before counterattacks could hit. Lieutenant Cora led a strike team on a daring mission to infiltrate the cloaked ship, using stealth tech of their own. They slipped inside through a hidden airlock. The corridors were cold and silent, shadows hiding unknown dangers. The team moved carefully, searching for the control core that powered the weapon. Suddenly alarms blared. The enemy was waiting. A fierce firefight erupted. Cora's team fought with everything they had. Bullets flew and explosions echoed in the alien corridors. One by one, the team pushed forward, though the enemy's forces seemed endless. Cora's voice crackled over comms. "We're close to the core. Hold the line, team. This weapon must be stopped." On the Vindicator, Commander Sloane coordinated the fleet's defense. She sent messages of encouragement, her calm voice a steady anchor in the chaos. "We cannot let fear control us. The galaxy depends on our strength." As Cora's team reached the core, they faced the last line of defense, massive energy barrier powered by the enemy's dark technology. Explosives were planted, and with a countdown ticking, they raced against time to escape. Outside, the fleet launched a final assault. The Vindicator unleashed its most powerful weapons, lighting up the void with fiery blasts. The core exploded in a burst of light, disabling the weapon and revealing the enemy's hidden ship to all. The battle's tide shifted. The enemy's secret was out, but the war was far from over. The galaxy breathed a cautious sigh of relief. But Commander Sloane knew the greatest challenges were still ahead. The monsters from the Deathworld fight not just for power, she said quietly. They fight for survival, for hope, for every soul in the stars. And so, the war continued. Shadows lurked everywhere, but the Deathworlders stood ready, fierce and unyielding. The silent SOS had awakened a fury that would not rest. The fleet was battered but alive, the enemy's secret weapon destroyed, yet the war had only just begun. Commander Sloane stood firm on the bridge of the Vindicator, her eyes burning with fierce determination. Every loss, every scar on her ships, fueled her resolve. "The enemy will pay for this," she said, voice steady. "We strike back with all we have." The Deathworlders prepared for a full assault. Their ships gathered like a storm, engines roaring, weapons charged, ready to unleash pure fury. The galaxy's fate was in their hands, and they would not fail. Lieutenant Cora, still recovering from the last mission, stood among the warriors. "We're not just fighting for ourselves," she said quietly. "We fight for every being who's ever sent a desperate cry into the dark." The enemy had regrouped and brought new horrors, swarms of deadly drones, ships packed with weapons that bent reality itself. Their leader's voice echoed across the void, a chilling promise of destruction. They will not survive what comes next. the enemy declared. But the Deathworlders were monsters born from harsh worlds. They knew pain and fear better than most. They had survived the deadliest conditions in the galaxy and carried that strength with them. The battle began with a thunderous roar. Ships clashed in the void, energy beams streaking like lightning, explosions shaking the stars. Sloane led from the front, her commands clear and fearless. Push forward. No retreat. The fleet surged ahead, fighting with ruthless precision. Enemy drones swarmed the Vindicator, but her fighters tore through them. Turning the tide down on the planet, Tally and Jox watched the space battle unfold on damaged screens. They fight like beasts, Tally said in awe. But maybe that's what the galaxy needs. Jox nodded grimly. Sometimes fury is the only answer. Back in space, the enemy's lines began to falter. The Deathworlders' fury was unstoppable. Ships exploded in brilliant bursts, the enemy retreating under relentless pressure. But victory came at a cost. Many brave warriors were lost, their sacrifices echoing in the cold silence of space. Commander Sloane took a moment, looking over the stars. "This war will test us all," she said softly. "But we will endure. We will fight until the last star burns out." Her crew responded with quiet strength. They were monsters in a deadly galaxy, but they were also the galaxy's last hope. Battle was far from over. But for the first time, hope flickered like a distant starlight shining through the endless darkness. After the fierce battle, the Deathworlder fleet withdrew to a remote sector of space to repair and regroup. The stars above were quiet, but Commander Sloane knew this calm was only temporary. A gathering storm brewed in the darkness. The enemy was not defeated. They were reorganizing, planning something worse, something deadly. On the Vindicator, the crew worked tirelessly. Engineers fixed damaged holes in weapons systems, while medics tended to the wounded. The atmosphere was tense, but determined. Sloane paced the bridge, her mind racing with strategy. "We need to strike first next time," she said. "Waiting will only give them time to grow stronger." Far from the fleet, in a shadowy corner of the galaxy, the enemy's high command gathered. Their leader, cloaked in darkness, spoke with cold certainty. "Our enemies grow bold," the leader said, "but they underestimate the power we will unleash." A map of the galaxy shimmered before them, red markers glowing on key systems targets for total destruction. Back on the Vindicator, Lieutenant Cora and her team prepared for a dangerous mission. "We need to gather intelligence on their next move," she said. "We can't win if we don't know what they plan." The team nodded, nerves mixed with resolve. They were about to enter the enemy's territory deep behind hostile lines. The mission began in silence. Cora's team slipped through asteroid fields and nebulae, avoiding patrols and hidden traps. The tension was thick. Every shadow could hide an enemy. Suddenly, their sensors picked up a massive energy signature, a secret base hidden in the depths of a dark star system. As they approached, alarms blared. The base was heavily guarded, and the enemy was prepared for an attack. A fierce battle broke out. Cora's team fought bravely, using every skill and trick to survive. Explosions rocked the base as they pushed forward. Inside the heart of the base, Cora discovered a horrifying truth. The enemy was building a weapon of unimaginable power, a doomsday device that could wipe out entire star systems in seconds. "This changes everything." Cora whispered through her cum, "We have to destroy it." The team raced against time, planting explosives while battling relentless enemy forces. The base shook as the countdown began. "Fall back," Cora ordered. "We don't have much time." The base exploded in a brilliant fireball. The doomsday weapon destroyed for now, but as the team escaped into space, they knew the war was far from over. The enemy would come back stronger, more vicious. Commander Sloane received the report. With grim determination, "We have delayed their plan," she said, "but the real fight is just beginning." The galaxy's fate hung in the balance, and so the Deathworlders prepared for the coming storm, ready to face the darkness with savage strength. The battle for the galaxy was far from over. It was only just beginning. The galaxy held its breath after the destruction of the enemy's secret base. The Deathworlders expected a pause, a moment to gather strength and prepare. But instead, an even darker shadow crept over the stars. Commander Sloan watched the flickering holographic map, red dots spreading like a plague across vital systems. The enemy's response was swift and brutal. Without warning, entire star systems fell silent. Communications went dark. Planets once bustling with life were now cold. Empty shells. Lieutenant Cora stood at Sloane's side, her face pale but resolute. "They've unleashed something terrible," she said. "It's worse than we feared," Sloane replied. "They're burning through the galaxy like fire." The enemy's new weapon was unlike anything the Deathworlders had faced before. It wasn't just destruction, it was total erasure. Stars vanished, planets shattered into dust, entire populations wiped from existence. Desperation gripped the fleet. Every day brought new losses. Ships disappeared without a trace. Allies begged for help, their voices filled with terror. But surrender was never an option. Sloane rallied her people. "We are not just survivors. We are warriors. We fight for those who cannot fight for themselves." Cora led a daring reconnaissance mission to find the source of the enemy's new weapon. They traveled through dead space, the eerie silence pressing in on them. When they reached the heart of the devastation, they found a massive weapon station. It's a monstrous structure that drained the energy of nearby stars to fuel its annihilation. The team's mission was clear: disable the weapon or die trying. They infiltrated the station, moving silently through cold, alien corridors. The enemy was waiting. A brutal battle erupted. Bullets flew, and explosions shook the structure. But the Deathworlders pressed on, their fury fueled by the screams of the innocent they had sworn to protect. At last, Cora reached the control core. With trembling hands, she placed the explosives. "Get ready to run," she warned. The countdown began. The station exploded in a blaze of light, the shockwave rippling across the void. Though the weapon was destroyed, the cost was high. Many were lost friends and comrades who would never see the stars again. Back on the Vindicator, Sloane stood silent, staring at the stars. "This war will test every soul," she whispered. "But we will not break. We will fight until the end." The galaxy's future hung by a thread, but in the hearts of the Deathworlders burned an unyielding fire, the will to survive and to protect. The galaxy was on the edge of collapse. The enemy had lost their greatest weapon, but their rage was far from spent. Their forces swelled, pushing harder than ever. Desperate to crush the Deathworlders and anyone who stood with them, Commander Sloane stood on the bridge of the Vindicator, eyes locked on the chaotic battle map. Red blips marked the enemy's final push, a massive fleet heading straight for the heart of Deathworlder space. "We hold this line," Sloane said, her voice firm. "No retreat." Her crew nodded, knowing the cost, but ready to fight for everything they believed in. As the enemy fleet closed in, Sloane's forces rallied allies from across the galaxy. Ships from dozens of species joined the fight, united by one goal: survival. The battlefield stretched across countless stars. Lasers cut through the darkness, missiles streaked across space, and explosions lit the void like fireworks. Among the chaos, Lieutenant Cora led a squadron on a critical mission to disable the enemy's command ship. Without it, the invading fleet would fall into disarray, flying through a hailstorm of fire. Cora's fighters dodged blasts and enemy fighters. Every second was a test of skill and courage. Inside the command ship, Sloane's infiltrators battled elite guards. Pushing deeper toward the core systems, the air was thick with tension. Every corridor a deadly trap. Cora's squadron breached the enemy defenses, striking at the command ship's heart. Explosions rocked the vessel as systems failed, one by one. With the command ship crippled, enemy forces began to falter. The tide of battle shifted. Outside, the Deathworlders and their allies surged forward. The enemy fleet broke, retreating into the void. Victory came at a high price. Many brave souls were lost, sacrifices that would never be forgotten. Sloane stood on the bridge, watching the last of the enemy flee. The galaxy was bruised but alive. "Today," she said quietly, "we proved that monsters from the Deathworlds can save a dying galaxy." The stars shone a little brighter. Hope had returned, and though the battle was won, the war for peace and survival would continue. The Deathworlders remained fierce, unyielding, and forever ready to defend their home.